Thank you, Lasceann Corla, and I'd like to thank Sinn Féin for bringing forward the bill. At the outset, I'd like to commend Deputy Doherty and all of the work he has done over many years in highlighting issues in our insurance industry. He has brought to light many very important issues and has been relentless in his efforts to try and deal with them. As outlined, this bill would require insurance companies to provide information to the central bank for each of the next 4 years, outlining how the cost of claims have fallen as a result of the new personal injury guidelines. I support the idea. It is one way of helping us to understand how effective the personal injury guidelines have been. Too often the impact of policy is not analysed enough. Often guidelines or rules are just introduced and it's assumed that they will achieve the intended results. It is important that when changes to anything are introduced, that we have mechanisms in place to help us judge whether the changes have been effective or not. It may also help guide us towards any future amendments that need to be made, or any additions which need to be made to the personal injury guidelines. It will also serve the purpose of monitoring companies and prices to see if and how they have passed these savings on to the consumers in the form of reduced prices. In my previous role as President of the Irish Road Haulage Association, we found that trying to tackle the insurance issue was like banging your head off a brick wall, because the Competition Authority was reluctant to tackle the issue. They wanted masses of evidence before they would consider taking action. Yet no such evidence was available because the insurance companies were not required to publish it. Another thing which needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency is related to the area of insurance reform, is the issue of test cases. In the UK, the financial regulator would take test cases to court on behalf of a certain sector, and the result of the case would become the precedent or benchmark for all other similar cases. Yet here in Ireland, every individual has to pay €5,000 to take their claims to the commercial court. This is completely unacceptable. It makes it more difficult for businesses or individuals to legally challenge insurance companies, and many publicans are in this position currently. We need to update the role of our financial regulator to have them take test cases in a similar way to the UK. After all, the financial regulator is there to serve the public. Many small enterprises or individuals simply do not have financial resources to each take an insurance company to court, and this will be even more problematic since many businesses have been closed for the past 14 months. As this bill relates to insurance, I think it's important to note, whilst I have the opportunity, that with regard to motor insurance, there are thousands of people unable to get on the road due to delays in our driver testing. We hope that motorists will have cheaper insurance costs, but we also need to ensure that people can get on the road. The RSA and the NDLS have been lax in bringing theory tests, driving lessons, actual driving tests. All of the interaction serves to undermine any savings that could be garnered from insurance reform, as well as prevents those out of work from job prospects, particularly in rural Ireland. I constantly called on the RSA to bring an online portal for the theory test, and when they did bring it, it only suits a quarter of the computer users because of the chosen software, and when you try to apply, you discover that there's no test available until 2023. If these new personal injury guidelines result in people being charged less for insurance, then that's great news. But it isn't that useful to someone who can't get themselves up and running because of delays in other areas. So whilst that is a slight tangent from the contents of this bill, it just illustrates the lack of joined-up thinking in the system. Overall, I believe it's important to have transparency in our insurance industry. Insurance companies make billions in profit as a result of government making insurance a legal requirement in certain aspects of life. Therefore, it's perfectly reasonable that we have transparency. We have careful monitoring and we have protections for the consumer. Thank you, Lasceann Corla.